We want to know your take on that and what really needs to be done going forward, because it really is about a solution-based discussion. Our question of the day is this, if you missed it in the first half, and this is it. We're asking, have you ever faced any form of unfair treatment by law enforcement officers? Well, Summer says, I remember sometime back in 2019 with my friend, we were arrested at the Dab by ATPU and handed to KDF at Daubli in Somalia. We stayed with KDF for 1 week, then the KDF escorted us to Garissa and told us to go home. These police officers mistreat people for no reason. We wanted to sue them for handing us rather to KDF, and torture we experienced, but we didn't know where to start. That's Daniel from Kitui. Dimas, if you will, why don't you advise the likes of Daniel who find themselves in such a situation? What happens next when you've been released and told, toka hapa, rudi nyumbani, but you really want to follow up on the situation, but to be honest, where do you begin? Who's going to believe you?
Yes. In that case, the IPOA still has a mandate to investigate that situation, and they will begin by first of all establishing whether an OB was recorded, and then there needs to be clear legal foundations to allow one discipline force to hand over someone to another discipline force. For example, at what point can the can the police hand you over to the military? Right. And the reason why we insist on reporting is that now this enables us to develop these laws and create advisories, and even ask the Supreme Court to tell us under what circumstances can that happen to people like Daniel. But it begins with reporting. With IPOA, even if the case does not take off, there is a record of something that is happening that is untoward. Because you can imagine if he kept quiet and other people have gone through the same thing, it means that it never happened. And usually people say that if it's not written, it never happened. It never happened. Yeah.
Okolla, do you think also there's just this sense of fatigue that the public have with agencies like IPOA, because it seems like there's a lack of confidence in what these people do, that they can't get the job done? How many cases are pending?
Actually, what many people in the community or in our communities don't understand is the IPOA's mandate. Like, can IPOA handle an issue only for police station, or if it involves other discipline forces? To my understanding is that IPOA only deals with the National Police Service, not the military. Because in 2017 there was this case in Kiambio where we have 2 gentlemen who were shot by the Air Force. When we tried following it up under the Kiambio Justice and Information Network, that's KIJIN, it came out clearly that we have to use the judicial system and not IPOA, simply because IPOA only deals with the matters involving the National Police Service. And also, most of the cases, like when we refer them to IPOA, I do feel like there are those backlogs. Maybe, I don't know whether they are understaffed or something, but it takes an extra initiative by the maybe media or the social media or the community to hype it so that it can be taken as a priority. For instance, we have different cases that were forwarded to IPOA by the Social Justice Centers Working Group in different areas. We have one in Mathare, Dandora, Kayole, Mukuru. They have been forwarding cases to IPOA, but they have not been followed up. Like, you know, the clients back in the community, they don't go to IPOA offices. They come to these social justice centers for ground.
They feel this is the person who can hear me out.
Yeah, definitely, because maybe that they can see them or they can have like that conversation with them. But I do feel maybe it's about time if the government and the taxpayer money cannot be enough to facilitate IPOA, maybe they can come back to ground and partner with the social justice centers, wakuwe na base yao kwa hizo centers, so ikuwe rahisi kufuatilia hizo cases, kwa sababu when you forward a case to them, the first thing they will tell you, like, okay, go for the OB if you didn't report it to the police. Why should I go to the same police station that houses that same police officer who intimidated me, who took advantage of me, who tortured me? So I think they should be very clear and give direct mandate, like how we are supposed to approach some cases.
Okay. Let's take a look at more text messages streaming in. Thank you so much for speaking to us about today's topic. Someone says, I never trust police officers. I opened my M-Pesa and a young lady came and conned my sister who was running it for me. Now they took all my float. I managed to catch the lady, ferried her to the police station, filed a report, told to come back 3 days later, found the very same lady with her father who had paid out the policeman. They told me my case had no basis and they made sure I withdrew the case and the lady went scot-free. Recently, my small sister was being harassed by a young married man who even threatened to kill her and made fun of her chronic illness and even said that he will kill her if she keeps refusing him. She filed a police report and the police told her, hizi cases hainanga maana. We had to move on, my sister obviously to another location. Wow. Okay, let's see another one if we can. Abu, people really speaking up, huh? Hello, good morning. Emmanuel from Machakos. Earlier this year, I was arrested in Nairobi at night around 8:30 p.m. for not putting my mask on correctly. Note, it's just not wearing it correctly, but he had it. Was driven around in a Land Cruiser till 10 p.m. only to be arrested again at 10:05 around the same corner for flaunting curfew. By the same officers after releasing me 5 minutes earlier. Jeez. Had to scoop out 10K as a bribe for the 2 charges that never made sense. It's scary being a youth in this country. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. But can you imagine being in that situation at 10 o'clock at night? You've just been let go because you didn't wear your mask properly. The same officers find you again in the corner. Then now you've broken curfew rules. I mean, this is crazy. And the solution that we as Kenyans have is just bribe, payout. Good morning. I was arrested on Gara Road at around 10:30 p.m. coming from work. The police officers who were driving a private car and were also wearing civilian clothes accused me of obstruction. They wanted a bribe of 5K. I only had 1K, which they refused. I was taken to Parklands police station where I sought to speak with the OCS, but he didn't assist me. When I was taken to court, the charges were changed to driving while drunk. A totally different thing from what they had claimed earlier. Even the magistrate could not listen to me. It was during the alcohol blow period. Courts were full. I paid a 40K fine. I concluded that it's better to bribe to avoid trouble because there's no fair hearing whatsoever. Are you hearing what Kenyans are saying? There is absolutely no confidence in law enforcement today.
But what the underlying issue that I can see from all these cases, and actually is what we've been seeing, is that there's a sort of an extortion ring that is going on, right?
Right.
That at the end of the day, it is the money that will get you out. And I remember one social justice center giving us information about a certain roundabout that is the boundary between Buruburu, is it, and Komarok, and that other area. That area. And whenever you cross to another jurisdiction, you can actually be arrested by all 4 jurisdictions within a period of 30 minutes, and have to pay each and every group of officers. And so it seems like we have also acquiesced, we have agreed to. And by no means do I mean that it's the fault of Kenyans, but it looks like there's an agreement that now we need to use money to become free. And this reminds me of that story that happened last week, where this gentleman was arrested and he used M-Pesa to pay. And was made to delete it, but he went and retrieved his records and actually complained on social media. And Internal Affairs Unit took up the matter and arrested about 5 officers, because, and including an M-Pesa agent who's actually being used by those officers. It means that if we are interested, we can get to the bottom of these things.
As a community.
As a community. But you see, it takes the effort of everyone, including the media, to shine a light on these issues. Because what happens usually is that the individuals are arrested, they may be arraigned in court or interdicted, and then we lose interest in the story. And after a year, we don't know what happened.
Yeah. Okolla, do you think that would now obviously make things worse? Like you're adding salt to the injury, because now, for me, I love what Dimas is saying, that it actually takes a community effort. But now what you see is that there's this standoff between law enforcement who will want to protect their own and versus now the people. You know, it is the media who are coming to mulika us. And so it is the law enforcement against Watwa media. It is the law enforcement against members of the community, you know?
It trickles down to understanding these issues. And let me just tell you the truth is the reason as to why most people resort to giving the handouts or the bribe is simply because of the tedious process.
True.
I have a young family, maybe a wife and a kid who is dependent on me. Mimi ni mtu wa jua kali ama nafanya kibarua kwa kampuni flani. If you arrest me today, it means that my family will go without food. The process might take hours or days or weeks or months in following it up. So to cut the story short, let me give you what I have. Leo tunaweza lala njaa, kesho naweza enda kutafuta. So next time nikipatana na karao, nitakuwa na hepa. Simply because I don't have enough to give you for that day.
True.
But in narrowing it down, I do feel like the police also have a system. They have their own working group that they have to protect their own. And many cases that IPOA have not been successful, I understand is because the police officers maybe in the station have been covering it up.
For each other.
It will take like months and everything else when the IPOA send in their investigators kwa ground. Whatever it is that happened, your cabinet ilishasafishwa, hakuna kesi.
The wheels of justice indeed are slow in this country, Dimas. But it seems like they're even slower for people who are poor. It seems that, you know, it's an economic thing, and it's it depends on the kind of class or case, that you're in, that will see how effective law or how fast the justice system can work for you. When you listen to cases about Baby Pendo, the one that breaks my heart is the Somali boy who was killed on the balcony in Isili. I mean, whatever happened in Kamaiko, rather, sorry. And that just breaks your heart, because whatever happened to justice for that family and for that boy who died. So why is it that some cases, especially depending on the person and where their background, will be faster and will be dealt with versus this person who's in, you name it, Kibra, who will never see, any justice served in their lifetime?
Well,
it's a tough one, isn't it?
We're struggling with this, even as campaigners, because we know that it's usually when the middle class changes its mind on something that the government actually starts making deliberate efforts to change the situation. For example, if you look at the deaths that have happened in the last few years, it's only when a lawyer was killed, a student leader, a student who had a scholarship in Leeds University, the other day there were also students or young children, is when the national psyche is perhaps triggered. But I can tell you that there are tens of people from certain areas whose deaths are usually matters of conjecture, where someone says they must have been a criminal, and that story ends there. It's an attitude problem that we need to deal with, because all lives matter, for example. But in terms of securing justice for these families, I happen to represent about probably 4 families right now, coming from different backgrounds of this tragic judicial killings. And what I can say is that the courts, especially now during the pandemic, are really moving at a slow pace. But at least at the end of the day, we are seeing justice starting to come out. For example, just within the last few weeks, I think, there are 2 officers who are jailed for killing someone in Naivasha. There's an inquest file that has recommended the arrest of an officer who basically killed someone and tried to cover up.
Yeah.
And then I can count about probably now 20 officers in the last few years who have been found guilty.
Yeah.
So what they usually say, the arc of justice is long, but it bends towards the right direction, and I think it's bending towards the right direction. We need a way to fast track these cases.
Sure.
How do we do this? By collaborating even with the judiciary in terms of case management. But this is not an easy topic, and we can't just keep charging people when it appears that it's a systemic issue. Systemic issue.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we only have a couple of minutes to go, but let's hear what more Kenyans have to say before we take your final remarks on today's discussion. Wycliffe from Kawangware, good morning. You're saying, talking of this, how about security of a complainant? We had issues whereby people have been killed because you tried to implicate them, that's the police. And as Kenyans living hand to mouth, how about the stretch of law process? Do I have time to follow up the processes when the end is predictable and my family depends on me? Wow, it's like he read your thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Wycliffe, for that. Good point. Let's see someone else. If someone says, it's so sad how the law enforcement, have taken advantage of the pandemic as a cash cow. They work one morning and decide to ambush people. They arrest people only to be released after paying 3K. We should say no to social injustices. Thank you so much for that. That is Babe Salama from Activista Kilifi Chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, your colleague watching this show. Thank you so much. Abraham, good morning. Wow, this is a lengthy one. We'll try and go through it as fast as possible. Someone says, good morning, K24. In June, I got caught by police. Immediately, I had arrived from Maralal. They told Kijana simama, nikasimama. They asked me, why was I walking at that hour? Yet it is curfew hour. Hii ni masaa ya uhuru, unafanya nini ndani ya town? Wow. I told I had just arrived from Samburu and I'm sick, not eaten food. Allow me to buy bread and milk. They said, twende tukusaidie ununue. Only to be told niingie gari. I was taken to Nyanyuki police station where we were almost 30 in the vehicle. Listen to that, 30. That's inhumane. Then they demanded 3,000 Kenya shillings cash, kama si hivyo mtalala ndani. So since I was not feeling well, I pleaded to be released, but they refused. So I had to pay 3,000 so they can release me. Nanyuki police, on the other hand, I will never forget that night. The same happened to me in Nairobi around tea room. They wait for any vehicle around that hour. Unatoa kwa gari. They say lipa ushuru haraka. That's Abraham's story. I think it's unfortunate because I think, we will hear this till kingdom come, these cases. And I want to challenge the two of you to not disappear because, we're out of time. We need to sort of form a town hall discussion around this, so that even if we're talking about the youth, let's have more youth representation here. Of course, the likes of Dimas coming to studio and, engaging us from a legal perspective on how to tackle this. But let's get your final remarks because we're running out of time. Solution-based, angle here, Dimas, from your point. What do you think it's going to take to see changes?
Well, there are certain legal and legislative changes that have happened since 2010. There are some that have been implemented, some that have not.
Yeah. Especially
the National Coroner Service Act, which is supposed to take away to create a special unit to preserve and interrogate forensic evidence, right? Every time someone dies suspiciously. We also have the Prevention of Torture Act.
Yeah.
We have the Victims Protection Act. Most of these laws have not been fully implemented. And they need to be implemented so that we ensure that officers who, for example, torture people are able to be charged in court.
True.
Previously, we had no law on torture. We just had torture being made illegal from the constitutional point of view, but not from a legislative point of view. And so we need those legal reforms that we have already given ourselves to be given life by the Attorney General and the Ministry of Interior.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me task you with this one, Okolla, for someone who's watching and feeling, by the way, I need to start figuring out how I can report this to, what did you call them? Social
justice
justice movements,
Yeah.
right? Give me advice on how I can find the closest one to me if I can. And can it really start there before now I start trying to get, you know, the court involved or IPOA involved in this?
Okay, in Nairobi we have like almost 19
Yeah.
centers, the social justice centers, and majorly they are in the informal settlements, but
True.
they are also serving these other areas. And the reason for that is because all these vices and injustices happens in the informal justice centers.
Yeah.
So they will help with giving that information. And that's how Activista now come in. Activista have the manpower to bring in like-minded youths from different areas and put them together where they can have this conversation and power them to go back to the communities and at least shed some light.
It's almost like a union.
Yeah, it's like a union coming up.
Yeah.
For instance, in Kiambio, we have the Kiambio Justice and Information Network. That is the Kiambio Social Justice.
Yeah.
And we have different conversations that we've started with the youths in the name of Katiba Cafe. We talk about the constitution and try to find a basis whereby you cannot be harassed by the police. So when you know this truth, at least you'll be so confident and you'll know that police officers serving you is not that they are doing you a favor, it's your right.
True.
So many people are losing it simply because they think the police officers are helping them out.
Yeah.
It's like they don't deserve it. So the social justice centers, they come together in changing these narratives. And the fear of that young man who was like, he had something to help the family with and cannot spend time in following up the cases. So the social justice centers will receive these cases.
Yeah.
They will show you the right way to go about it. They will help you go report.
Yeah.
They will help you refer to IPOA. They will involve different organizations such as maybe Amnesty, IJM, different organization that can help the youths or the poor persons in the community access justice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the clarion call here is that we need to understand that there's strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage you, dear viewer, by the way, should you have obviously faced any form of unfair treatment by law enforcement officers, you've heard it from Dimas and Okolla, by the way, there are channels that can handle this for you. It starts by you looking for that social justice center that is closest to you. We want to encourage you also to read up more on what your rights are, because Okolla said it very well. How many of us even understand what our rights truly are? And so with that, we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for interacting with us. I can't thank you enough, Dimas Kiprono, for being with us. Well said. He is a campaign manager at Amnesty International Kenya. Asante sana yet again. Young Okolla, thank you. And thank you so much to the entire Activista for representing and, of course, highlighting some of the cases that are there on the ground. We appreciate you as well. Keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at K24 TV. My name is Shiko Kaitani saying Asante sana on behalf of the Breakfast crew. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow right here on K24. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Okay.